now I call to the stage amazing Daniel Terhorst-North. Daniel uses his technical and operational knowledge to help business and technology leaders to optimize digital product organizations. Daniel, the stage is all yours.
Fantastic, thank you. Good morning, Budapest. I'm so sad that I'm not there. I have to say, Craft is one of my absolute favorite events every year. I've been to all but one of them, I think, since they started. By the power of the internet, I'm in London. I'm being introduced by Ricardo in Germany, speaking to you live in Budapest. So let's see what happens. We've started okay, we're online. So I want to talk to you this morning about, I guess what I've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years is helping organizations become more effective, right? That's kind of my gig, if you like. I work with organizations on their technology, on their process, on their structure, on their leadership, on their ways of working to try and help them kind of unlock their potential. It sounds very cheesy, but that's sort of what I'm trying to do. And I had an epiphany. I had a realization, an aha moment about 6 months ago or a year ago. And I was talking to a CTO who I've worked with for a while. And he said something. He said, I really like the work we've done. I really, I can definitely see the impact that this work is having, but it's really hard to measure it. I said, well, what do you mean? You're happy with what's happened? He said, people are doing different things. They're having different conversations. They're saying different things. And there's loads of meetings I don't have to be in anymore because my people are doing great work and they're getting on with it. He said, so I can see that things are improving, but I can't measure it. And I paused and I said, but you are measuring it, right? You're describing behavior change. Though that behavior has changed because things have improved. And this got me thinking about transformation and the work I've been doing and how we do things. And I have to confess, what I'm going to talk about has been hiding in plain sight. It's been right under my nose for 10 years, and it took me this long to realize it. So let's see where this goes. Here are some questions that I hear whenever I'm involved in transformation projects. And this is from the inside, so where I've been in organizations where we've had people come in to help us transform, and also where I've gone in as a consultant or an advisor to help on some kind of transformation initiative. And they say things like, how long will it take? Is a reasonable question to ask, right? How much will it cost? How can we measure it? And when will we be done? And these are all reasonable questions by reasonable people trying to make sense of their world. And so then, unfortunately, what we have is some sketchy answers to these, because it turns out that we're not really thinking about them the right way. And mea culpa, I have been absolutely guilty of giving some of these answers in the past. So how long will it take? We don't know yet. We're going to start. We're going to see how we get on. You nod sagely. We're agile. We don't do measurements yet. 3 to 5 years is always a safe bet. So 3 to 5 years is about the length of a CIO, in fact. So that's how long the boss is going to last. And then the next boss will come in and then we'll just do something different. So 3 to 5 years, you can nod sagely and say that. And also you've got the out that you probably won't be there in 3 to 5 years. So, they can't hold you to that. It will never be done is one of my favorite answers. It's a continual transformation. We're always transforming. We're never done. And if you're the PMO or the finance team hearing that, that's a really good way to make people nervous. Or let's ask the consultants. We've got these expensive people in the building. Let's see what they say. And they say things like, how much will it cost? And we say, see how long will it take? Okay. Or how much have you got? What's the budget for this? Because we're going to spend that much. I also like, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's someone else's budget. There's a central budget for this. You don't need to worry about how much it's going to cost. Or, of course, let's ask the consultants. How can we measure it? Well, then we just wave our hands and we say, can't measure intangibles. I'm sorry, this is intangible. And change is intangible. We can't measure it. We're just going to see what happens. Something lead time. That's me. I've said that a lot. So this is where we say, well, we're going to measure lead time and throughput and all those things. And yeah, okay, we can measure improvements in work rate, but that's not necessarily about transformation. Happiness surveys. We love our happiness surveys, our impact surveys. To be fair, actually, this has a little star on it because surveys can be enormously useful, enormously valuable. I'm going to talk about them a bit today. The risk with any kind of survey is what's called conformity bias or people pleasing. So conformity bias is that people tend to give you the answers they think you want to hear rather than what's really true for them. A famous example of this was what called the Coca-Cola wars in the 80s, where Pepsi-Cola was competing with Coca-Cola for market share. And they did a thing called the Pepsi Challenge. And they went all over the world and they would have these two plain glasses, and one had Pepsi in and one had Coca-Cola in. And they would challenge someone. They'd say, right, we want you to taste them. And they always tasted the Pepsi one. They always preferred the Pepsi one. And they always said, oh, yes, yeah, this is the one I like best. And then what happens on a cold day, on a hot day, they walk into the shop, they go up to the fridge and they pick up a Coke, right? Because branding outweighs opinion every time. Or let's ask the consultants, of course. How we can measure it, let's ask the consultants. And finally, when will we be done? When we declare victory, when we just decide we're done. We're just, okay, well, we've been doing this for a while and, we're going to claim that things are better. We are now SAFe certified. We've implemented Scrum, whatever the thing is, right? When we run out of budget, well, clearly that's time to move on and do something else. So we'll just say we're done then. When the CIO or the sponsor quits, that's the 3 to 5 years. Or of course, when we get new consultants, and then we can ask them. So when the new consultants roll in and the old consultants roll out, you can tell because they have different color shirts. That's how you know. You go from the white shirts to the pale blue shirts, and that's your new set of consultants. So, okay, why? Right? Why can't we get any straight answers to these questions? And I think a lot of it is that when you look at anything, you see different things. You see different perspectives in the same thing. So this is a famous picture of either a vase or a pair of faces. And there's some great neuroscience that says you cannot see both, you cannot interpret both models at the same time. You can flicker between seeing a vase and faces, but you cannot simultaneously see the vase and the faces. So transformation is, what is transformation? It's a project. Well, we kind of don't think it's a project anymore, do we? We don't think it's a thing that starts and stops and has a budget and staff and whatever. Maybe it's a program, or a program is just a big project. It's just a fancy word for a big project. So more money, more people, more time. A journey, I hear this a lot. Everything's a journey though, isn't it? X Factor is a journey. Mastermind is a journey. Any reality TV show, we talk about the journey. Transformation, my favorite, is this a never-ending journey. Yeah, and again, you just watch the chief financial officer just break out in a sweat at this point and go, "What do you mean never-ending?" So this was the thing that was hiding in plain sight for me. What if transformation is a product? What if we're trying to think of something that as a process when really it is a product with everything that means? Well, if I'm going to make that claim, I probably ought to explain what I think a product is. So let's start here. This is mostly what I do, or what I have been doing. And this is mostly what a lot of folks in the agile world do, a lot of folks in the software world do, a lot of folks in the transformation industry do, is we think about, we're trying to do the right things. And we're trying to do the right things. And so that's called product development. Okay, and in the context of transformation, it's trying to introduce the right practices, the right habits, the right routines. The thing is that lives within, that's the what, and that lives within a kind of construct of doing the right thing. So we can be, if we're doing the wrong thing really, really well, we're just going in the wrong direction faster. So product management is the thing that sits around product development that says, what should we even be doing? What is the product for? What problem does it solve? What need does it meet? So for today, I just want to focus on that. I just want to fade out the what we do and just think about why we're doing things, okay? And this is product management. And this starts with, or in the modern age, this starts with a wonderful quote by a chap called Ted Levitt, Professor Theodore Levitt, from Harvard Business School. And he says, people don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want a 1/4-inch hole. And then you ask them why they want a 1/4 inch hole, and they say, I want to put a nail in the wall. So why do you want to put a nail in the wall? Because I want to hang a picture. Why do you want to hang a picture? Because when I have art in my working space, it feels more peaceful to me. Why do you want to feel more peaceful in your working space? When I feel peaceful, I do better work. So I don't want a 1/4 inch drill. I want to do better work by feeling more peaceful, by having art on my wall. Okay, that's useful information. There might be other ways that we can help you feel peaceful in your work. Conversely, people might want a 1/4 inch drill. You might want to be seen as the DIY guy or the DIY lady, and you want your friends to kind of, when they come to your house, they see these amazing tools that you've got and that you're fixing things up. So that could be part of your identity as well. So sometimes people do actually want a 1/4 inch drill. So Ted Levitt's saying, like, rather than talking about what people want, let's talk about what they want it for. He was working at HBS, at Harvard Business School, with a chap called Clay Christensen, who was another one of these great management thinkers and product thinkers. And he formulated this model. He calls it the theory of jobs to be done, or jobs theory. And the theory of jobs to be done, he's written a number of books. The Competing Against Luck is the most recent one. It came out about 5 or 6 years ago. And it's great. It's full of anecdotes, right? It describes the model of jobs to be done, but it also gives you loads of really good insights. There's a wonderful, I don't want to give you any spoilers, there's a wonderful extended customer interview where a chap called Bob Mester, who's one of Clay Christensen's gang, he's interviewing a guy who bought a mattress. And he bought a mattress like on a whim. He was walking through Costco, this massive discount American pile 'em high kind of store. And he bought this mattress. And of course, there are bed shops, there are mattress shops, there's online options and whatever else. And this guy on a busy day with his family, with a big trolley loaded full of stuff, stops, goes back and gets another flatbed trolley to put a mattress on and buys a mattress. And Bob Mester's interviewing him, saying, so what led to that decision? Why did you suddenly stop everything, go get a mattress? And the way the story unfolds is just astonishing. You learn about this guy and his kids, and he's working hard and he wants to be a good dad. And so when you think of the job that mattress is doing, it's not just the functional job of giving him a good night's sleep. There's a social element to wanting to be a good dad, and an emotional element of him feeling guilty that he's working hard and doing things. So understanding what job something's doing is really important. Just a moment. Sometimes things happen when you're broadcasting from home. That was my wonderful lady who walks our dogs, coming in to walk our dogs. So fantastic timing. There's a job that needs doing. So Clay Christensen then, he says, okay, jobs to be done. Let's understand some of this language. So what is a product then? A product in jobs theory terms is something you hire to do a job. So it's this idea of hiring to do a job, or and so you hire one thing over another thing. And so you might hire, so he's hiring a new mattress to do the job of giving him a good night's sleep. What is a job? A job is making progress in a given context. I have 2 dogs. Making progress in a given context. And again, all of these terms have a clear definition in jobs theory. So progress is, I'm in a certain place, I'm in a certain situation. I have needs, I have some functional need, I need to get some job done. I have there's a social aspect to that and an emotional aspect to that as well. I want to hire something that is going to help me make progress towards some desired goal. The context then are the various factors influencing the job to be done. And this is important because as my context changes, the thing I hire, the product I hire, will change as well. So a product that helps me make progress in one context may completely not be appropriate in a different context. And so then what is progress? Progress is some kind of movement towards a desired state. So let's take a real example. Let's take an organization where we might describe our current context. And our current context might look like this. It might say, it takes ages to release anything, shouty, angry baby, right? And I've heard people, often with this facial expression, saying things like this. Unfortunately, that's not terribly useful. All right, that's a qualitative judgment. It takes ages to release anything. What does that mean? Do we know how long it takes to release things? Is it unreasonable? Have we measured it? Or is it just a sense of frustration and we're channeling that frustration towards our release process? So instead, we want to prefer quantitative statements. So we say each release takes 30 plus or minus 12 days. We've measured it, right? We measured the last 20 releases and they took on average 30 days with a huge variance, 12 days either way. So what does that mean? That means that in the best possible circumstance, I'm not going to get anything out inside 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks to do a release. Even if it's a one-line change, it's going to take at least 18 days. We've measured it. Worst case, we're talking about 7 weeks. We're talking 42 days, right? And if those are business days, we're talking over 8 weeks. So now I have a data point. And I can look at that current context and I can say, well, what kinds of factors are defining our context? And this is where we start thinking of transformation as a product. So we think, well, the first type of factor is the attitude we adopt. So an attitude is a position that we take. Okay, so I might adopt the attitude of curiosity. When something goes wrong, I want to know why. I want to understand what happened. I might adopt an attitude of blame. When something goes wrong, I want to know whose fault it is, right? Who I get to shout at. And so those different attitudes are going to cause me to approach the same situation in different ways. But these are intangible. This is your culture, right? Your culture is the attitudes that you adopt in your organization. But we can't measure attitudes. It's really hard to measure attitudes. However, attitudes then lead to behavior, right? So what we think affects what we do. So, for instance, if I have an attitude of curiosity and there's an outage, my behavior might be, let's have a blameless postmortem. It might be, let's gather data. It might be, let's do some kind of, let's try and understand what systemic structures caused this outage and what can we change to improve it. Or if I have an attitude of blame, my behavior might be, I want a list of everyone who was involved so that I can shout at them and I can start firing some people and scaring some people. So the attitude I adopt affects the behavior that I exhibit. And that is observable. And that I can test that. I can say, am I seeing people shouting and blaming, or am I seeing people asking genuine open questions? Because regardless of what you say your attitudes are, right? If you say you're an animal lover and you kick puppies, you're a puppy kicker. Okay, you're not an animal lover. And finally, then these behaviors, which is actions by individuals, these cause systemic characteristics. So, for instance, if we take the attitude that we should be able to release at will, our behaviors are going to start looking at where there are delays in releasing and where we could eliminate parts of a process, or where we could automate things, where we could streamline the process. And so the property of the system is that now we can put out a small change within a day, right? And we don't always put out small changes every day, but it's verifiable. I can go and check that. And it may be that we say that we can consistently put out a change within a day, because it may be that if everything lines up, we can get a change within a day, but generally we don't. So what we're looking at with characteristics are properties of the system that are consistent over time that we can go and verify. And you see, this then creates a loop, a reinforcing cycle, where our attitudes inform our behaviors, inform what the system of work we're in can do, its characteristics, its capabilities, which again inform our attitudes. The more we create an organization where we can adapt and learn, the more we adopt an attitude of adapting and learning. But likewise, the more we behave in a way that is blaming and fearful, the more we adopt an attitude of blame and fear. So this is either a reinforcing virtuous cycle or a reinforcing downward spiral. So let's take a look at our desired state then. we want to look at factors that describe our desired state that are not true about our current context. Okay, so, and I look at these in terms of statements. So we're going to look at statements that are true about our desired state that aren't true about our current context. And we might say something like this: our team has all the skills and resources we need to do our work. Will we say that's an attitude? Will we say it's a behavior? Will we say it's a characteristic? Well, it's not a thing that we do, but it's a thing that we can do. So this is a characteristic. So we are in a system in which our team has all the skills and resources we need to do our work. That means that we are autonomous. That means that we can get on and do work. We believe people should speak up and ask for help. What's that? The clue there is we believe. Any statement that starts we believe or we take the position is an attitude. Okay, we believe people should speak up and ask for help. And that attitude is going to lead to certain behaviors. We choose our own tech stack and tool chain from a well-supported portfolio. So at some point, some group of people has said, these are the tool chains or the tool stacks that we support as an organization. There might be a JVM one that we say we've got like Java and Kotlin and Gradle and those tools. We might say that Go is a really useful language for CLI tools. We might decide that we're using Rust in certain contexts where we need certain memory guarantees and safety and whatever else. We might say that Python is our preferred lightweight language, scripting language. And so what we do is that we invest in a portfolio of those. And that says, if you choose something from this portfolio, we can help you learn it, we can support it, we can secure it, we understand operability, we understand how it works. If you go outside of the portfolio, you're on your own, right? So that's great. So that is a behavior. That's the thing we do, right? So we choose our own tech stack from a tool chain. And that's great because that means we can get up and running quickly and we've got a good brains trust to help us. We say things like, we should be able to release to production whenever we want. And again, this conditional word is a clue. It's an attitude. We should be able to, we can't yet. Hopefully, adopting the attitude that we should be able to release to production whenever we want will lead to the characteristic that is true, okay, by us behaving in a certain way and changing things around here. Here's a statement: I challenge the status quo without fear of reprisal. What is that? That's a behavior. That's a thing that people do. Okay. I challenge the status quo without fear of reprisal. What a lovely thing to be able to say. You know, I don't challenge the status quo and then get shouted at and bullied. I challenge the status quo and fearlessly. Okay. And then finally, our team's decisions are consistent with other teams. We know this. We can make decisions confidently within our team that we know are consistent. That's a characteristic. That's testable. I can go and check that out. And so then what happens is, as we're coming out with these statements, we'll notice that these statements group into themes or kind of topics. So these ones here, for instance, we might say that these first two about skills and resources and releasing to production, these are about autonomy. These are about a team being self-determining within constraints. The second two about speaking up and about challenging is about psychological safety. In a low psychological safety context, there are three magic characteristics, okay? There's what happens when you ask for help, what happens when you ask questions, and what happens when you challenge the status quo. In a psychologically safe environment, asking for help is about collaboration, asking questions is about learning, and challenging the status quo is about progress, okay? In a low psychological safety context, asking for help is incompetence. You know, you should be able to do this on your own. Asking questions is ignorance, right? Why don't you know this? And challenging the status quo is troublemaking. Yeah. So you can ask yourself, here's a quick quiz. Ask yourself, in your current context, in your current team, in your current organization, how are those three behaviors met? What attitudes surround those behaviors of asking for help, asking questions, challenging the status quo? That is your yardstick. That is your heuristic for psychological safety. And then things about alignment. Right? How aligned are we? If we've got many teams, how to what extent are those teams pointing in the same direction? We choose our own tech stack, which is great, but if everyone just chooses whatever they like, we end up with complete mayhem and huge fragmentation. If it's from a well-supported portfolio, we're going to constrain the choice, but still provide a choice. We're not going to say everything happens in Python because that's silly. We are going to say everything happens in this suite of languages and technologies that cover most use cases. If you have a really gnarly, unusual corner case, tell us, right? We'll support you figuring something out. So now we've got these factors describing our desired state, and these are statements about a desired state that are not necessarily true about our current context. And this is when I started getting really excited, okay? Because now I've got a tool for measuring progress. And that tool is called a Likert survey. So a Likert survey, I'm sure you've seen these things. It's a statement, we can release a production consistently within a day. I feel safe speaking up in meetings. We can make these statements and we can ask, to what extent, how much do you agree or disagree with this statement? From strongly disagree through strongly agree. And so if we look at those previous statements, when we baseline, the chances are it's going to be mostly over on the left, mostly strongly disagrees and agrees. And what we want to see over time, if we are doing the right thing, if we're building the right product, okay, if the transformation product we are building is the right thing, is doing the job it's been hired for, we should see all of those things trending across to the right. Well, can we release easily within a day? Well, some systems we definitely can. Some changes we definitely can. There are still some that are much harder. I would say maybe I'm either neither agreeing nor disagreeing, or I'm maybe agreeing now. I'm shifting across to the right. Whereas, 6 months ago, a year ago, it was a hard no. Okay, so whatever we're doing is moving the dial, right? So now we've got a tool. The problem with any kind of survey like this is it contains science, okay? So be very, very careful. It's extremely easy to construct a bad survey. It's difficult to construct a good survey. So from an academic perspective, there are two things that we want in a survey. Okay, the two things we want is reliability and validity. Is it reliable? Is it valid? So reliable means this: if I run this survey a number of times, so if I took different random samples across my organization and asked them the same set of questions, I would get similar results. Right? If each time I run this survey across different groups of people, I get just different results, I've got a random number generator. That's no use. So reliability is when I run this survey, the way I've structured the questions means that I'm likely to get consistent answers. Valid means they're the right answers. So in other words, if I were to use other techniques to cross-reference to come up with, to answer the same question, then I would, then those things would agree. So if we're looking at, say, release frequency, and I ask the question, we can release, we consistently release within every week, okay? And I ask this as a survey question, I get generally yeses, and then I go and measure it, and it turns out that we release maybe once or twice a month. Then I know that my answer, although it's consistent, is not right. So I need to fix that survey. And there are a number of techniques for creating academically defensible surveys. There's a rule of three, for instance. If you want to understand something, say like psychological safety, then you don't ask, do you feel psychologically safe? That's a single data point question. Instead, what you do is you ask the same topic, the same theme, in three different ways. And what you want is for those three different answers to correlate. So, and there are many of these techniques. I'm not an academic, right? I'm not a survey creator. So I am working with people who are good at this. So if you want this to be defensible, if you want this to be a robust survey, so reliable and valid, academically defensible, then find some academics to help you defend it. And I can't possibly talk about this without mentioning Nicole Forsgren. So she was the person I learned about this through. With her work with DORA, DevOps Research and Assessment, which was so back in mid 2010, so around 2015, 2016, there was a survey called the State of DevOps Report. It's still running now. And the State of DevOps Report was started by a company called Puppet, that made a like DevOps tooling, and it was a really informal survey. It was completely just asking loads of people across the industry some stuff about DevOps, right? You know, how often do you release? Do you have a you build it, you run it culture? These kind of things. And Nicole is both a sysadmin, like she's got a technical background, and she's an academic. So she's Dr. Nicole. And she looked at this survey and she said, "This is a disaster." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, this isn't defensible at all." And they said, "Can you make it defensible?" And she's like, "Watch me." And so she created this defensible survey. She made it defensible the following year. And from then on, they were able to do some really interesting research. And it led to a brilliant book called Accelerate, where she co-authored with Jez Humble, Gene Kim. So looking at, they call it the science of DevOps, because what they did is they demonstrated that certain characteristics, as 24 different characteristics they described, in an organization will predict success. So it's not causal. So we think of like causal means when you do this, this happens. It's slightly weaker than causal. It's called predictive inferential. So in other words, if you do these 24 things, then that predicts higher performance. And this was seminal. This work is kind of game changing. It's the first time anyone's done anything academic, I would say, in the agile kind of DevOps space. And ironically, we still don't have anything like this for agile. There is no evidence that any agile method works, is more effective than anything else. There is rock solid evidence that adopting certain DevOps practices will affect your bottom line in a positive way. Super exciting stuff. So, and Nicole gets challenged from time to time, partly because she's outspoken, or mostly because she's a woman in technology and people tend to pile on and it's dreadful. What I love, though, is when she defends herself, because she is fearless, right? And so here's a quote. "I'm similarly annoyed when people tell me survey measures are proxies." So, you know, one of the bits of feedback she gets is, "Oh, it's just a survey, right? That's not science." And she says, "Folks, all measures are proxies, right? Even telemetry, even your system sending out a data, it's all proxies. It's up to you to make sure they're good proxies, right? And this is are they valid? Are they repeatable, right? Are they robust? And make sense of them. So don't just toss them out because they're not convenient for you. If you don't know how to make surveys work, don't blame surveys, right? In the same way, if you don't know how to make telemetry work, don't blame telemetry. Go learn it." So this got me really excited, because really what I'm talking about with transformation as a product is a kind of generalization of the Accelerate DevOps work to any behaviors across an organization. And we can look at autonomy and alignment and psychological safety and ways of working and product leadership and technical leadership and strategy and all of these things that you want your organization to be good at, and describe the behaviors, describe the characteristics, a series of statements of what great would look like, what your target organization looks like. And now you can build a survey or a set of surveys. You can build some analytics tools to understand where you are on that journey. And once we start looking through this product lens, we can start answering those questions. How long will it take? We can map that now. How far away is the desired state? If we look at the behaviors we want and the characteristics we want and the attitudes we want to adopt, and we look at how far they are from where we are, okay, that gives us a sense of how long it's going to take. If when we baseline this, we get a pleasant surprise. We discover that a lot of people are saying they're either neutral or agreeing with some of our desired state. That's brilliant news, right? We were doing okay and we didn't know. It doesn't happen very often, but it's a really nice surprise when it does. And then we might say, how much will it cost? Right? And again, if we're doing it right, it's going to pay for itself. So this goes back to theory of constraints. We look at all of the different behaviors and the different characteristics we'd like to change. And we say, which of those right now are our biggest impediment? Which of those right now are slowing us down the most? If we go after those and we can affect genuine change there, we should be able to see bottom line improvements in all of those operational metrics, in lead time, throughput, work in process, system load, how quickly work moves through the system. and how good the quality of the work is as it moves through the system. We can measure those things. And we should find, if it's not paying for itself, we're probably doing the wrong thing, right? Now, this isn't universally true. There may be work we're trying to do in what I call the insurance side of business. So things like security, InfoSec, things like compliance, where you only notice it when it goes wrong. Operability. So we could measure things like outages. We could measure things like security breaches. But hopefully we're not getting enough of those that you can see a trend line. If we are, we've got bigger problems. So, but by and large, if we're doing it right, it pays for itself. How can we measure it? Well, we know how we measure it. Continual assessment, continual sampling. If you've got several hundred or several thousand people, and you've got typically tens or maybe hundreds of these statements, then we can take the subset of statements that describe a theme that we're going after right now, and we can take a suitable random sample of the organization, and we can sample, we can test, we can see where people's sentiment is shifting. We can see where people believe that we're moving the needle in the organization. And then for those goal characteristics, we can measure those, we can go and test them. And finally, when will it be done? And the answer is, well, when our behaviors changed, right? And this is the interesting thing. The reason I put a star there with behavior is this. Remember, the goal of a product, you hire a product to make progress towards a desired state. Now, we're in a complex adaptive system of human beings, right? So what that means is, as we're making progress, the chances are our goal state is going to change. As we get good at things, we realize that where we want to go isn't where we thought we wanted to go. So now we have a new target state, we have a new goal state. And what does that mean? That means we now need to reassess the product, right? We need to reassess what do we need to hire in order to make progress? Because we may have built a fantastic transformation product that helps us get from A to B, except that we don't want to go to B anymore. We want to go to C. And so however good that transformation product is for getting us to B, it's the wrong product. So now we need to change some things. So maybe we were doubling down on our technology, and now we need to focus on things like people behaviors, or we were focusing on people behaviors, and now we need to think about how the organization is structured in order for people to get work done. And so we need to shift our focus. And so we need to continually reassess not just the effectiveness of the product, but the efficacy. Is it the right product? Are we still going in the direction we think we want to change? So we've been talking a lot, I've been talking a lot about product management, about are we doing the right thing? This then gives us a context in which we can start talking about doing the thing right. And this is the stuff that we're good at. This is the stuff this is the ways of working. This is the work I've been doing over the last few years with Anna Urbaniak and the rest of the team about autonomy through alignment. And what does alignment mean? And we look at alignment of leadership and alignment of product and alignment of technology, alignment of ways of working, and the various tools and techniques involved in that, and the big room planning and the self-organizing and the measuring lean flow metrics. And all of these things that we've gotten good at. And the missing piece for me was the outer shell. So yeah, we're doing the right thing, but how do we know that we've defined the goal in an effective way? So transformation as a product, very exciting. And then understanding the context in which is where we want to go. So with that, I'd say this: let's go build a transformation.
Thank you very much, Dan. This was amazing, talking about transformation and having these topics on cultural behavior and all of this stuff, all of these concepts that you just brought. They're just simply amazing. I will actually repeat one of the questions that we had in the previous talk, which is: do you have a recommendation of book for people that want to go a little bit deeper on this topic?
Do I have a recommendation for a book? This is one of these crazy things where, all the information is out there. What I'm doing is, I guess it's kind of a different kind of synthesis. So there's lots and lots of literature about transformation, and some of it is quite good, right? And there's lots and lots of information about product management, and again, some of it is quite good. The exciting thing for me is this synthesis, is the idea of thinking of transformation of an organization. So this is, as far as I know, this is original work, right? If someone else is already doing this, brilliant. I'd love to find them, because then that means I can be lazy and steal all their stuff. What I would say in terms of product management, I've had the incredible luck over the last 2 to 3 years of working with Jeff Gotthelf, who's one of the I think of him as one of the fathers of modern product management. He's got a number of brilliant books. Lean UX was the original one, and then Sense and Respond. He co-authored both of these with a guy called Josh Seiden, another massive brain. And so from a product management perspective, absolutely read Clay Christensen. It's beautiful writing. It's really well written. So that's the Competing Against Luck. And then anything by Jeff Gotthelf and Josh Seiden, and also Melissa Perry, is an absolute master of modern product management. So Melissa Perry's Escaping the Build Trap is brilliant. On the transformation side, the thing that really resonated with me in the last probably 10 years, books that you read and you fall off your chair, was Amy Edmondson's Fearless Organization, Professor Amy Edmondson, where she talks about psychological. So she introduced the term psychological safety nearly 20 years ago. And then it was only when Google's Project Aristotle rediscovered it about 6-7 years ago that it came to prominence. But her research there is phenomenal, and the book is brilliant. So psychological safety is the single most effective thing you can bring into an organization to create the culture that is going to allow you to do some of this change.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much. One last question from my side again. And if anyone has a question, please go to Slido and drop us a question. We are running out of time, but I would ask any question, if you can send it now. Dan, from my side, are those slides going to be available for our audience?
Yeah. So I've uploaded them already. I'm ahead of the game, which is unusual for me. They're on SpeakerDeck/Tastapod, speakerdeck.com/Tastapod. I will post a link in the hop-in. And then it'll be available for the conference folks as well.
All right. Dan, thank you very much once again.